Hello, everyone, and welcome to
writing class.
Writing class. Yep.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really hilarious. It's because Winona never waits to see the red record button flash. So she's all the way
never.
halfway.
You can't say never.
Oh,
because
I'm sorry.
Never means it never.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Does not happen
I'm sorry.
at all.
She only waits. She doesn't do it 99.1% of the time.
98%.
99.1% of the time.
I feel like it's a 98.
99.1% of the time.
This isn't a math class. This is writing class. Let's get to the writing stuff.
Our percentage is correct. Before we have to be accurate or writing. Don't. Anyway. Okay. Hi,
fine.
That's Tanya, by the way.
Yeah, now go. All right, so but first we're gonna continue our guest. I'm Jade though.
And I'm Winona.
Right.
Oh,
and yeah, we
high five-ish.
high five. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I don't know. We're just moving on today. We're just moving on. All right, so we are literary life guides, but pop poetry is just our fun way of saying yes. We wrote a book full of poetry. All right. So and I thought divorce was bad with other life lessons, and I thought being grown up was easy, and I thought I did my journey alone, all available on Amazon, and 2 of them are available on Audible. And then the other one is If Only I Were Me, only available on Barnes & Noble. I mean, it's one of the millions of books, not millions of books that we have, but like
23, 24.
So many books. So many books. Anyway, yeah, and then we are the co-founders of the 25 Hottest Indie Authors, Artists, and Advocate magazine. And yeah, so you can find out everything your ladies are doing on www.andwethought.com. We have a co-host today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Tanya Todd. I'm an author and actress from Las Vegas.
Fabulous. Thank you for coming on.
Isn't the hard part about having an actress as your co-host is she's always prettier than you?
No.
Hey,
and she always like nails the good look too at the end. It's like fabulous.
You've given me lots of practice.
All right,
enough about us.
Enough about us and how it is like Tanya's the best. We need to get to our wonderful guest. Wonderful guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. My name is Ericka McIntyre, and I'm a full-time freelance writer and editor. I worked in media and publishing for more than 20 years, and I spend a lot of time helping writers tell their stories and helping authors craft their books. I got to spend a little over a year as editor-in-chief of Writer's Digest magazine, which is a 100-year-old brand serving the writing community. It's a huge brand for writers. I'm still their editor at large. And I get to work out of my house like I've done for the last 10 years, which isn't new. And again, I spend my time writing and editing and eating and sleeping and breathing books. That's pretty much my whole raison d'etre.
Literary life.
Yeah, that is literally a literary life.
Oh my goodness.
For sure.
Because I find people in literary lives have really good food recommendations, but we're going to skip that question.
We are. Because as we were talking before, you were talking about how you discovered different things about yourself in 2020 and in the pandemic. Because I think that we all need like a little bit of light, like put a little bit of light on this. I mean, not the pandemic, obviously.
Yeah, I've always said that I was optimistic to the point of stupidity. Just to ask any of my ex-husbands, but I am an optimist. And that's hard earned. And life can be tough even in the best of circumstances. So this year has been its own very special challenge for each and every one of us. But I feel like, if you're going to have this time, then, and there was a lot of pressure at the beginning of quarantine. Oh, I'm going to learn how to bake, and I'm going to knit 62 blankets, and I'm going to write the great American novel, and I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm not about putting that kind of pressure on yourself. I'm really not. I think that we build ourselves up to a point where we can't succeed sometimes. But I know that for me, last year was a very stressful year for me. It's like people talk about how bad this year is. Last year, I got my dream job at a company that filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy 9 weeks after I took the job. In the middle of the Chapter 11, my mother passed away. It was like this double whammy of just the worst thing you can imagine happening, right? And it happened all at once. And I kind of feel like now if I could live through that, and I did, I feel like I can almost live through anything. It's one of those things where if you've been through something really terrible and difficult, you learn a lot about yourself. So coming into this year, last year, every day I'd be like, why? Why is this happening? Why am I going through this? What is this for? What is the point of this? Well, I found out this year, sometimes you don't get the punchline until later. And this year I found out that, no, okay, I really can handle some of this stuff. And I actually am capable of going within and drawing out more than I thought I had. And this year, for me personally, even though in the world everything is really bad, for me personally, I've written more this year than I've written in 20 years. I've read more this year than I've read in a very long time. I'm growing. I decided to launch a business on the first day of March. Talk about a laugh riot. I left my job at Writer's Digest in February, and I left there on good terms. I went there, I did a good piece of work. I transitioned them into new ownership. We got to the 100th anniversary. I got to do really cool things there, but I realized that there was still some things I wanted to do for me. So I left and I restarted my editorial business. And of course, by March 13th, the world was on fire. And, I felt invisible for a couple of months and was kind of stunned, like I think a lot of people were. But then I realized, oh, okay, well, I still can do this thing and maybe I can do that thing. And it's like with anything, you do one thing and you feel good about it and then you can do the next one, And so now I feel like I did hit a roadblock, in March and April. I am a couple months behind where I want to be with things, but I ended up still picking up and carrying on. And I feel like a lot of the people that I work with a lot of self-published authors. It's one of my favorite things to do is to work one-on-one with individual authors. And I feel like a lot of people just kind of put pause on things this spring, but now it's kind of like everybody wants to make up for lost time. So I've actually spent the last couple months editing more words than I thought it was possible to edit in a calendar month. But that's great, because that's my whole reason for being here. It's what I do. I'm just, I'm finding that I used to be always in a hurry. There was always this pressure, get here, do that, be this. And with a lot of that taken away, you can kind of collapse, because I think a lot of times we use busy as avoidance for things we don't want to look at in our lives, maybe. But once you get past that, you can actually start to see, oh, okay, I still have some things that I can bring to the table, even in altered circumstances. So, I call myself a professional cheerleader, even though I was not athletic at all. But my goal is to cheerlead writers and authors and, help people meet their goals in this crazy business we call publishing, because I feel like that's what I bring to the table. I can bring people along, kind of like a story Sherpa, a book doula. I'm not sure. Because I'm in business for myself, I can call myself whatever I want, which is another cool thing about writing.
Like if you self-publish your book, you could call it Literary Life Guides with Pop Poetry instead of just a book of poetry.
Look at that marketing right there.
You love marketing right there.
Just like Ericka's going to end up calling herself a story Sherpa.
I love it. I love it so much. I mean, I know Winona has a question, but I'm going to be ridiculous and narcissistic like she is. And I'm going to ask you, how have you seen publishing change as the industry over the years?
Okay, that's a much more important question. Go for it.
Yeah.
So how's business style?
Well, I've been in this business since around 1998-ish. And I first went into business for myself in 2010. And when I started in 2010, I had moved to New York for a job and had a situation come up where I had to move back to Cincinnati. And it was the first time in my life that I had quit a job without another job lined up to go to, ever, since I was like a teenager. And I'm 35 and I don't know what to do. I call up all my old employers in Cincinnati and nobody had a job for me, but everybody had freelance. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do this for a couple months until I find a real job again. And then 7 years later, it was my real job, When I started in 2010, 80% of my client lists were traditional publishers, academic publishers, trade publishers, whatever, publishing companies. And a very small segment of my client lists were self-publishers. I would work with maybe 1 or 2 self-published authors a year. Now, 10 years later, in 2020, that's completely flipped. 80% of my client base are self-published people. And I have a very small bit of my client list that is still traditional publishers. And we've kind of watched this revolution in self-publishing, and we've watched publishing become more accessible. with technology, with everything that's available now. And the thing is that if done right, a self-published book is completely indiscernible from a traditionally published one. And you don't have to take it to some snooty pub board that says, no, we're not going to do that book this year. We've already done one like it. You know, I mean, I worked for a traditional publisher for many years, and I would sit in those pub board meetings and I would watch us reject really good, what I thought were really good ideas for a variety of reasons. We had just published something too similar to it, you know, a season ago, or maybe we didn't think we could market it effectively to get, you know, the investment back, whatever it was. And we would have to say no to things. And it always broke my heart because, and those were the days when self-publishing was still kind of looked down at, and, you know, and now though, I've watched it completely evolve over the last 20 years. And I love working with self-published authors, and you know, the books that are coming across my desk are of just as great a quality as anything that I've picked up from, you know, traditional publishers in recent years. So I think that there's definitely been the biggest change, I think, is that there's been this kind of revolution where you can do it yourself now. You can go to Bowker and get an ISBN. You can find a professional designer. You can get on Amazon. You can sell your books. You can get in bookstores if you want to do the legwork to do it. And this is the thing too. You know, people think, oh, if I go with a traditional publisher, they'll do everything for me. No, they won't. No, they won't. You'll still end up selling books out of the trunk of your car if you end up with a traditional publisher. So why not? I mean, if you really want to do it, why not do it yourself? Keep the profits for yourself. You know, if you're going to have to do so much of the legwork yourself anyway, then why not just do it yourself? And then you have the control. You get a say in the editorial voice and the packaging and everything more than you would at a traditional house. I like that. The other thing that I think is great is that more voices are being heard in the publishing world now because of that revolution, which is critical. You know, the big five publishers, you know, somebody asked me once, when do you consider yourself a real writer? And I was like, well, I feel like if you're a writer, you're a real writer. If you sit down and you write, you're a writer. And I don't think that when traditional publishing, you know, those big five publishers, New York Publishing, when quite frankly, they have not made room for everyone, for a diversity of voices and views, then it's not fair to say that you're not a writer until you've been published traditionally by the big five. When for a very long time, they didn't make inclusion a part of the system. So to me, that's unfair on the face of it. If you're a writer, you're a writer. And I don't think there's some external yardstick that you can really use to judge that. If you're out there and you're doing it, then you're out there and you're doing it, you know? And I think that's great. I think that's great. I know that I've worked on probably, I don't know how many books in the last 5 years that were great books, but that a traditional publisher probably would have passed on.
For what reason?
And just for the reasons I said. It's like, oh, well, we published a book like this 2 seasons ago. So, like, you know, just things like that within their own specific house, they don't want to do it for this, you know. Sometimes it's just because
I've been turned down for something like that. It's, you know,
right.
We just acquired something that is just too similar to this.
And, you know, and I understand that because when I was editor-in-chief at Writer's Digest, I had to do it too. I would get a great pitch and it was literally very, very similar, too close to something we had literally just run in the magazine. And, you know, you want to keep it fresh for your audience. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. In fact, it means it's a good one because we just did the same thing. You know, that's what I mean. It's like, it was a good idea, but for that house or that magazine or whatever, at that moment, they had just done it. So they didn't want to do it again. But that shouldn't be the reason why your book doesn't get published. You know, then you take it to somebody else, or at a certain point, you do it yourself. I mean, I just worked with a self-published author. She's at the top of all these bestseller lists on Amazon. She couldn't tell you how many traditional publishers passed on her book for any reason under the sun. You know, she got tons of rejections and then she finally decided to do it herself, and now it's a bestseller. The thing about publishing is that we all have to remember, the thing about art, it's subjective. It's subjective. And you know, editors are people too. And I mean, I tried very much to, when I was an acquiring editor particularly, keep my vision wide and not just acquire stuff that I wanted to read. There's more people in the world than me, believe it or not. And then people like other things other than what I might find interesting. But I know that it's just easy to fall into, well, I like this book, so I want to do it, or I don't like this book, or it's still subjective. If you land on an editor's desk at the wrong hour of the wrong day, you can end up with a rejection, which is why I tell my authors, don't let rejection stop you. You know, keep going. I can't remember who said it, but somebody said you should be going for 100 rejections a year if you're a writer.
Yeah, I have a spreadsheet for my 100 rejections per year.
Which, you know, and you tell people that and you're like, whoa. I'm like, yeah, this business is work. It's work and it's hard work, and you have to develop.
But it's a numbers game. If you don't put yourself out there, you're not going to get.
You know, and it's tough. I mean, it's tough. And it's, you know, I have authors who I just did a blog for my own site today about, you know, what are your goals for writing? Why do you want to write a book? And what do you think that you can do with it? And I talk about the difference between that which is theoretically possible and that which is statistically probable. I have a lot of authors who come to me and say, oh, I want to be the next Stephen King. I want to be the next James Patterson. I want to be the next, what about? Okay, well, I'd like to be the next Lady Gaga, but I guarantee you I'm never going to headline the Super Bowl. Okay. There's a difference between a realistic expectation and a realistic goal, and something that, you know, everybody wants to be a bestseller. You know, I get new authors, and one of the first questions I ask them is, you know, why do you want to write a book, or what are your goals for your book? Oh, I want to be a bestseller. Well, yeah, great, noble goal. What kind of bestseller? New York Times bestseller, Amazon Kindle bestseller? What kind of bestseller do you want to be? And you hone that down, and then you aim toward that target, knowing that it's going to be an incredible amount of work. You would think that it would be enough just to write the book, because that's not hard enough. It's not, though. It's not. You know, it's kind of like when somebody passes away and you go to the funeral, and it's like the funeral, the day of the funeral, that's not the end of the grief. That's the beginning of it in a lot of ways. And it's the same way in the process of book publishing. You know, you finish your manuscript and you think you're done. And really, in some ways, that's just resetting the clock to day one, because now you have a whole new set of stuff you have to do. It's a lot of work. But the cool thing about it is,
you write your next book.
Right, exactly. What's your next book? I interviewed an author, and I said, you know, so what are you working on now? And she's like, I'm working on taking a nap. It's exhausting. It really is. And, you know, the good writers make it look really easy. And so it looks like it's almost no work at all, you know, but that's how you know you've really done the most work, is when it looks like no work. It's insane. This is an insane business.
No, I've had that happen to us. People have said, oh, we didn't know how much work y'all really did. Like, we thought it was all glitz and glam and pictures and then they were like, you're up at 4:00 in the morning. Yeah, putting on my makeup because I have an interview at 6.
And you don't go to bed until 1:30.
Right. Didn't go to bed till 1:30. So I'm really working on like 2.5 hours of sleep, and this coffee, and I'm praying this coffee will make it through.
And
I know this is true because of the messages that you guys send me. It's like, they sent me this one at this time. How are they already messaging me at this time?
Because we don't. We do sleep, but it's very interesting. As we said before, like, we go to sleep kind of early. I go to sleep early, then I wake up in the middle of the night and do some more work. So
I see. One of you is messaging me at night, and the next one messages me in the morning.
Right. So whoever woke up in the middle of the night, they get to sleep.
Exactly. So Tanya, I know you have at least one more question.
I know you
wanted to ask. Take this advantage because I'm being gracious today and giving up my question time right now.
Okay. I do have several questions, but since we talked a lot about your profession, I kind of want to talk about your dedication to saving cats.
Oh yeah. I just
Tell us about your volunteer work.
Yeah, you know, I am a crazy cat lady. They find me. I haven't actually consciously adopted a cat in more than a decade. They just find me. I have 2 rescues right now. I have a tortie that I bottle raised that was abandoned under a deck, and I have a three-legged tuxedo who was born in my rose bushes as a feral. But I actually just spent the morning doing one of my favorite things, which is actually feeding adoptable cats at the local Petco with the rescue that I volunteer with. And I've been doing that for ages. I have a soft spot for them. I don't know. I went during the
Well, for that reason, if I ever have an opportunity to introduce you to Bill Murray, I will do so.
Yeah, you know, Bill, I'm still waiting. The funniest part about it is that I live in Cincinnati, and his son was a coach for Xavier basketball for any number of years. He's not here anymore, unfortunately, but he was here for a long time. I have met so many people in Cincinnati who are like, oh yeah, I met Bill. He came in town for the Xavier game. He came in the bar where we were working at. He came in my restaurant, whatever. And I'm just like, what? He's the only famous person I want to meet. I've met Bill Clinton. Wrong Bill.
Wrong Bill.
Wrong Bill. Like, I haven't met Bill yet. But yeah, I really have done that for, I don't know when I started volunteering, that at least 20 years ago with animal rescue. It's just something that's really close to my heart. And I'm actually working with a high school student right now to build an Instagram page for the rescue that I'm working with now. Because, you know, cats go big on Instagram. The internet is run by cats. So
have you considered any kind of cause marketing where you connect your volunteer work to your work so that you can help promote them?
Gosh, no, but that's a fantastic idea. No,
well,
I never thought of
I'm going to recommend a book when we're done by Cheryl Green that helps you do just that.
Please do. Because and especially during the pandemic, you know, the pandemic hit right as kitten season was happening. And, you know, a lot of people who were trying to do TNR and all these different things, it's like everything got shut down. And so kitten season this year was just, wow, crazy. And so it's been tough on those organizations because, well, and the other thing too is now everybody has crisis fatigue. And so it's kind of hard to get attention to a cause at the moment. In some ways, you know, we have like one more thing. But it's something that I've always done. When I was a little girl, I wasn't allowed to have any pets. And I wanted a cat really badly. And a stray wandered to our house and immediately adopted my mother, who was the person who told us we couldn't have any animals. It's like they know. It's like they know. And she loved that cat. And I was like, see? And then we always had cats after that. But they
that worked out for you. That worked out for you so well.
I feel like that should be a short story.
It really should be.
It should be a short story.
Ooh, or a children's book.
Yes. I've been working on a lot more children's books lately. I love working on children's books.
What do you write?
What do I write? Well, I'm in the course of writing two things right now. I am writing a memoir that is tearing my guts out. Now that my mom has passed away, I kind of feel like I can write it. Whereas when she was still alive, I kind of felt like I couldn't in a weird way. And I'm working on that. And it's exhausting because you have to go back to sometimes the hardest things in your life to talk about them. Mm-hmm. And then the other book that I'm working on is actually a book about books. It's a book about how to build a book, how to self-publish your own book. Like what are the steps in this process? I get questions all the time from people that to me are just givens and super basic. And then I remind myself, I've worked in this business for 20 years. Of course I know this stuff, but if you're brand new to it, it can be very confusing, very murky, very intimidating. So what I'm trying to do is to break it down into, you know, the step by step and make it super clear to help people. Because I feel like, you know, publishing, it plays too close to the vest sometimes for me. I'm all about the, you know, sharing that information, you know, and bringing other people along. I don't like that kind of whisper network kind of stuff. If I know something, I'll tell you, you know, it's not a secret.
You actually have one of the best definitions for the different types of editing. Do you want to share those for the viewers and listeners?
Oh, I do. Oh, thank you for
saying
that.
I love the way it's laid out.
Well, you know, there's a lot of confusion about that. And even amongst editors, we don't use this. We use terms interchangeably. Somebody will call a line edit a development edit, and somebody will call something a content edit. And it's like, what do you mean? And the way I like to look at it is, and the way I've described it before is, you know, there's funnels, there's The biggest funnel is your development edit. That's the top level bird's eye view. Does this work as a piece? Are there huge holes in your plot? Or are there segments in the narrative, like say in a memoir, that are just missing? And you're like, why is this not in here? Why are you not telling us this? What's gone? Character development, subplot, the big picture issues. Does this even work as a piece? Then you filter down, to your line editing and your copy editing and your proofreading. And it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller as you go. At copy edit, I'm not looking for plot holes, and I'm not looking for the pieces of the story that I think are missing. What I'm looking for at copy edit are all the words spelled consistently? Is your grammar, is your punctuation, is all of that online and together? Are all the proper names spelled correctly? If you cite a fact in here, can I prove that? That kind of thing. If you list a statistic, I'm going to see if I can find that anywhere. If I can't, I'm going to flag it for you. If you have in fiction, it's like it's spelled Gary on page 9 and Garry on page 12, and making sure that things are consistently treated throughout the manuscript, because those kind of copy editing errors take your reader out of the story. If okay is spelled 5 different ways in a manuscript, it's distracting. So you refine it down, you polish it up. After a development edit, a book can look substantially different than what it started as. Whereas after a copy edit, it looks pretty much the same. It's just a lot shinier. It's got its tie straight. And then it gets laid out in design, and then you proofread. There's no point in proofreading a manuscript before it's been laid out in a design program, because once it goes into design, all sorts of errors can get introduced. So when you're proofreading, you're looking for, is there a header on every page? Is there a footer on every page? You do read the manuscript through another time, and you want it to be by somebody who's never seen it before, because our brains have adapted to filter out a lot of information, and that makes life easier for us in some ways. But when you're proofreading, that's exactly what you do not want. You want someone with completely fresh eyes to your work, who sees that extra "the" in the middle of a sentence. Your brain is trained to skip over that so that you just don't have that information. But as a proofreader, you can't skip over that. That's exactly what you're there to find and fix. Or page breaks done correctly, that kind of thing. So it's kind of like, bigger down to smaller. And then at the very end, once it's proofread, it should be as close to perfect as it's going to be. But I always put a little asterisk there, because books are made by people and people are never perfect. You can get a book as close to perfect as it can be. But very rarely is it ever completely perfect. I just picked up the brand new novel by one of my favorite writers, and I found 3 typos in it. It's just, it happens. So we don't beat ourselves up about it. We do the best that we can, and then we fix it in the next round.
I have a few more definition questions for you really fast.
Oh, sure.
What is a copy editor? And then what does a content curator do?
Okay. Well, a copy editor is a very well-defined job description. A copy editor edits copy. Again, it's that level of edit where you're checking for grammar, punctuation, spelling, consistency, all this stuff. It's very mechanical. A content curator, which is kind of, curator is a trendy term, but a content curator could also be an acquisitions editor. It's someone who, like what I did at the magazine, we have to put an issue together this month. We want to find 12 pieces of writing for that issue. How do they play together well? How do they fit a theme? You don't want to run 2 pieces back to back that are too similar, or you don't, the diversity of voices and viewpoints, that sort of thing. That's more art, whereas copy editing is more science. If you can break it down that way, that's kind of how I like to look at it.
It's nice to know that we're like content curators just a little bit.
Yeah. Content.
For sure.
I do have one question.
I know you do.
It's a 2-part question.
Of course it is.
Okay.
Well, no one's famous. Not really, but okay.
No, if I was famous, I'd be much happier.
No, I'm joking.
No, I would not be happy. Well, number 1, part 1 of my question is, when you started talking, you were talking about a library literary events. What did you do for them? And how do people get involved? And then my B question is, you're discussing 3 topics at the Writer's Digest conference. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm actually involved locally in Cincinnati, where I'm at, with the Mercantile Library, which is a membership library here in Cincinnati. And they do a lot of programming for readers. They bring in authors and do, book groups. I'm probably going to be leading a book group with them in the spring, I hope, knock wood. I've asked, they've said sure, but we'll see if it actually comes together or not. And then as far as the Writer's Digest conference, this year, I am going purely as a spectator. I'm not doing any sessions this year, and that's on purpose. I went to both last year as their editor-in-chief, and it almost killed me. I love Writer's Digest. I love the conferences. They had to pivot from, 2 terrestrial events to 1 merged virtual event this year. And I have tons of friends and colleagues who are giving sessions this time around, like Amy Collins and Guy Gonzalez and Jane Friedman and Rand Walker. And I'm going to be tuned into those sessions in my yoga pants with my tea from home. And it's going to be great because I'm not going to have to figure out how to get from one end of the conference hall to the other end of the conference hall and take a pre-break in between in 3 minutes and then introduce a speaker. So now next year, when things change, hopefully I will go back and actually lead sessions again. But this year, I'm gonna be at home watching like everyone else, and it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be fabulous.
Yeah,
I know. I actually enjoy going to other people's things. You're just this is fabulous.
Or you don't have to run the whole thing. You just be there.
The problem is that you often find yourself, even when you're sitting in the audience, you often find yourself looking for the people who are running. Because I'll be sitting there and be like, oh, there they go. What happened? Oh, I bet you will go, oh, this is a 3 assistant problem. This is a problem.
Yeah, and that's true when you're online too, though, because, last year I paid to go to our conference, because we were going to do it in person. And I didn't attend our conference as a spectator. I was too involved with behind the scenes. I had to watch all the after stuff. I had to wait until after the conference to actually benefit from any of the classes.
It's amazing.
There's too much to do.
Yeah, I'm hoping I can actually keep the spectator hat on this year, because that's tough for me too, to be sitting in a room and be like, but.
Yeah, well, don't be surprised if you get invitations for other conferences.
I love doing it. Anything that connects me with people and an audience, however I can share what I've learned in this gonzo business over the last 20 years, I'm always happy to do.
One thing you learned?
Yes.
One thing?
No, I have a question about what you learned. I do.
Oh, okay.
And then Jade has a question.
No, the question is
about
right, Winona, because
go for it.
My time. See, I'm being the person today. I'm being the narcissist. I'm taking it from her. So okay, so I have a question about what are 3 pieces of advice that you would give a new author trying to set out in this crazy world of publishing, and also where can people check out your website and stuff that you do?
Okay. Well, 3 pieces of advice. In this business, you have to be resilient. You have to be able to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. You have to, that's my first piece of advice, because rejection is a big part of it. So get ready for that and have that tough skin, and know that a criticism of your work is not a criticism of you as a human being. It feels very personal, because it is. We put our blood and guts into our work. But truly, remember, keep that separate. The criticism of your work is not the criticism of you as a person. The second thing that I just always tell people is just never give up. If this really is your dream, if this really is your goal, if you really have a story screaming forth out of you, tell it. Don't give up. It may take you longer than you think it should to get where you want to be. But I am almost 46, and I am only just now getting to where I feel like I want to be. Don't quit, and that's kind of a partnership with resilience. And the third one is that in this business, in this industry, people talk. They talk to each other. be nice. If you are not a nice person, people will find out. Be professional, be courteous, pay your freelancers on time, respond to people's requests respectfully. You would not believe how many people don't feel like they have to do that. Professional courtesy is a thing. If you're asking someone for a favor, make sure they understand that there's something in it for them too. Basically just treat people how you want to be treated. And think about that when you're talking to people. And again, it seems obvious, but you would not believe the number of people for which it is clearly not obvious. Make friends, not enemies, because you never know when you're going to run into someone again, ever. This world is very small. So those would be my 3 pieces of advice today. And where people can find me is at my frequently misspelled first name, ErickaMcIntyre.com. That's the funny thing. I'm named for my dad, whose name is Rick. So his name is right in the middle of mine. Most people spell Ericka either with a C or a K. I spell it with both. I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse. But earlier this year, when I finally set up my website, I had to decide what I wanted to call it. And my friend Guy Gonzalez said, no, your name is your strongest brand. Buy the misspelled URL too. And I said, okay. So
Good decision.
And have it redirect to yours because your name is your strongest brand. And I said, okay, ErickaMcIntyre.com it is. So there you go. I keep everything there. If you can Google that. I'm also on Twitter. I tweet as Cincy Bookworm. So I'm pretty easy to find on there too.
And for the audio listeners, I think it's important to say that it's MC. It's not McIntyre, it's McIntyre when you type it. But when you pronounce it, you say Mac.
Yes. Well, see, that's the other problem with my last name. There's an Irish spelling of my last name and a Scottish spelling of my last name. There's about 4 different spellings of my last name. I mean, it's impossible. It's just impossible. You'd think it's a basic name, but apparently it's not. But yeah, that's with a C and a K and an M and a C.
But no A's.
No A's. There's only 1 A in there, and it's not where you would think it would be. It's but yeah, and Cincy Bookworm is usually pretty easy to find too. That's probably easier to find in some respects than the spelling of my full name.
Thank you so much for coming on today. We really
Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun talking to you ladies today.
We're excited. We like when people have fun on our shows. It's a good thing. And because as she said,
and I love when people talk because I don't have to do less work.
And as she said, it's a small world, so she'll be like, hey, no, I had a great time with this show.
I'm sorry, and I love to do work. I love to do work.
Right.
Yeah, as you just said it to everybody, okay.
But they didn't hear it the first
Hilarious.
time.
Hilarious. All right, so Tanya, where can people find out more about you?
I'm on social media at Ms. Tanya Todd, and my website is www.mstanyatodd.com.
Thank you so much. I don't think I'm ever gonna get tired of it. I'm just gonna be like, it's gonna be like 5 years in, and I'm still gonna just be smiling about it. All right, I love her website.
5 years in, I hope it's over. Never mind.
You hope there's
no,
liquor?
I caught myself.
You hope there's liquor involved?
Yeah. Could you bring back our flask?
Okay, maybe.
Okay, Jay, can you wrap us up?
All right, absolutely. You can find out everything your ladies are doing on www.andwethought.com. While you're there, check out the homepage. Check out one of our new podcasts, the Ladies Tale podcast, where people read a script, professional actors. And while you're there, more importantly than all of that, please go over to the Ladies tab. Go down to the middle and see the charities that we probably support. Although this might not air in October, we recorded it in October, so it's Domestic Violence Month. So I just want y'all to recognize that Powerful Beginnings is doing really great work, and they're the first charity on the page. And if you could help them in any way, as we know, 2020, money is funny, as the old saying would say. So you might not be able to donate money, but you might be able to donate time. They have a website, and they're asking for volunteers, so that. And if you're not be able to do that for all the charities, please go ahead and add them and just tell them thank you for doing this good work in the world, because sometimes we all need to hear and have encouragement. Exactly. Even Winona has to have encouragement. So it's everybody.
She took my narcissistic.
I know. I said I was doing it today. So just remember, that wisdom is all around you if
you're open to finding it and acceptance. So peace and love, you guys, from Winona
and Jade. Oh yeah, thanks for listening.